King George IV had no legitimate heir, so the crown passed to his oldest surviving younger brother, who became William IV. Although William IV was a supporting role in a couple of the options discussed in my Young Victoria comparison video, we don't have any movie or TV options that are just about him, which means next up we have Victoria. This 2017 historical drama lasted 3 seasons. Even though I enjoy all the movies and shows about Victoria, I decided to go with this one since it has the most content covering not just Victoria. Other important historical figures are here, like the prime ministers, different members of the royal family. If you just finished watching Prince Regent, which was the last show in our marathon, a lot of the same characters are there, so we get to see the continuation of their stories as well. Ratings. This show had a strong start. It does an awesome job of introducing the characters to us and bringing us into the Industrial Revolution. Also, this is really pretty. The costumes and sets are breathtaking. I loved the supporting cast just as much as the main cast, which does not always happen. The only major critique I have here is that after a very enjoyable first 2 seasons, the third had trouble holding my attention. I must have not been the only one who thought so, since it is now being canceled. Sex and nudity. There is no blatant sex in this. However, they sure do talk about it a lot. For those of you who thrive on scandalous court drama, this show is for you. Violence and gore. No blood and guts spilling everywhere, but we do have some assassination attempts. The content advisory says 13 plus for alcohol use, smoking, foul language, which, yes, I agree with all that, but also for nudity, violence, and sexual content. Maybe I blocked those out. I really don't remember those happening. Next up we have Mrs. Brown. This movie from 1997 takes place a few years after the death of Prince Albert. It's mostly about Queen Victoria in mourning after the loss of her husband and how she finds comfort with a servant, John Brown. We follow their relationship and how it's viewed by pretty much everybody else. The big question always being, when will Victoria be ready to return to her royal duties? Ratings. The pace is a little slow for a modern audience, but that didn't bother me. It's very emotionally driven. Marvelous acting in this by Judi Dench as Queen Victoria, who won something like 7 awards for the role, and Billy Connolly as John Brown. Their performances and chemistry is what made this otherwise slow-paced movie never become boring. Also, the Scottish Highlands are always beautiful, and we get a few good castle shots too. Sex and nudity, violence and gore. Nothing on either front unless you count some shooting at innocent deer. It's 103 minutes long, rated PG. We now reach the end of Queen Victoria's life with Victoria and Abdul, which was a movie that came out in 2017. It's about the unlikely friendship between the old queen and a young clerk from India. Ratings. This is currently my favorite of all the Victoria shows and movies. The unlikely friendship between these two people was portrayed beautifully. It's crazy to think something like this actually happened, even though I'm sure the movie's not 100% historically accurate. Judi Dench reprises her role as Queen Victoria, and wow, such an amazing performance. In fact, everyone was fantastic. Ali Fazal as Abdul Karim was both endearing and, gosh, with just a look, this man can make me laugh and then cry. Seriously, if you have not seen this movie, it's on Netflix. Go now. Sex and nudity. No sex or nudity here. This is a story about friendship. We need more friendship stories. Violence and gore. Nothing here either. Thankfully, Victoria knew how to put people in their place when needed. It's an hour and 51 minutes long, rated PG-13. We finish up with the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, starring Edward VII. This series actually starts before Edward VII was even born, following Victoria and Albert and the birth of their first child. It gives an in-depth view of Edward's, or Bertie as his friends and family called him, very long wait to be king, and then what he had to deal with once he finally did. The whole show spans 70 years. Ratings. This was really good. I didn't have any expectations going into it since you don't really hear that much about Edward VII, but man, this took me by surprise. I felt like I learned so much, not just about Edward, but also all of Victoria's children and even grandchildren who were married into other royal families. So much international politics going on and the lead up to World War I. My only regret is that this, since this is from Birdie's point of view, my rose-colored glasses perception of Victoria and Albert was somewhat diminished. Sex and nudity, violence, and gore. Again, nothing here to speak up about. Just your general wagging of eyebrows and behind closed doors infidelity. That's it. Next up, we'll be looking at the current royal family, the Windsors. Thank you so much, everyone who has stuck with me this far. I genuinely had no idea if people would watch these, and now I'm flabbergasted that at the time of this recording, I have over 80 subscribers. I'm having a lot of fun, so I'm gonna keep going, sharing more of my history, TV, and movie lists. In no way do I consider myself any kind of expert at YouTube or history for that matter. I'm just a completionist nerd. I'm always happy to accept recommendations and constructive criticism. Thank you and happy watching.